I'm Alan Carroll. I head Esri's Story Maps team. It's great to have you here. Thanks for coming as the party looms and as exhaustion overtakes us. I appreciate your being here, and we will all forgive you if some of you nod off after a week of drinking from the fire hose. We're going to go through several things here. I'm going to give a brief introduction of Story Map apps, and then Bernie Zakowski, who has gained fame on the plenary stage, will give you some tips and considerations about crafting your story maps. And then Steve Sylvia, blue shirt here, will talk about customizing apps for your stories on various levels. Then Gregory Lazou will show you our new Story Map Journal app, which we're very excited about. And then I'm going to wrap up a little bit, and hopefully we'll have time for some questions and answers. I want to also recognize a couple of other members of our team. Rupert Essinger is here in the second row, and then lurking on the side there is David Asbury. It's been a really exciting week for us. It's just thrilling to see the uses that you and many other people here are putting to our apps. And thank you so much for your great work. We hope this session will help a little bit in moving your work forward, since we are dealing with a communal currency of humanity, according to this whoever was quoted there. At any rate, just a little bit of background about story maps. And I think most of you know this, but just to review and make sure, story maps are simple web apps that combine web maps that are shared and published on ArcGIS Online with multimedia content to tell geography-based stories and hopefully to inform and inspire people. So emphasis on web apps that are open source. Most of them are hosted on ArcGIS Online, but you can and are welcome for all of them to download the source code and really do whatever you want with it. We encourage it. We get very excited when we see people doing innovative stuff with our apps. So please have at it. Emphasis on ArcGIS Online. The maps within our apps are published on ArcGIS Online, and it's the ArcGIS Online infrastructure that enables our storytelling, along with the good stuff that you bring to the table, your texts and photos and videos and occasionally audio. So these are meant to inform and inspire, to change the world in various ways, big and small, to reach a broad audience, to make GIS accessible to more people, and to give color to black and white information. A little bit about our philosophy. Story maps might present sophisticated topics, but we want to present them in very simple ways. We strive to make our user experiences intuitive and to limit options to support the story, but not give users all sorts of confusing, unnecessary options. They are designed to serve a single purpose, so they're not designed to be map viewers for exploring everything. We try to design user experiences to tell specific stories on specific topics. Not quite all yet, but almost all of our stories are designed not just for viewing on PCs, but also for tablets and mobile phones. And going forward, we'll make sure they're all viewable across all those platforms. They're also designed to not be passive, but to be engaging. That doesn't mean that we want to make people click multiple times to get to things, but we want people to not just sit there, but to actively explore and wander around and learn and have fun. And finally, these stories might be aimed, some of them might be aimed at advanced users, but our user experiences are aimed at everyone, and we hope that our apps are enabling you to reach everyone, essentially. So we've been developing one after another, various apps to serve various purposes and user experiences. The most popular is the Story Map Tour, which presents a sequential narrative that goes across a landscape or a continent or a globe or you name it. Our new Map Journal, which is our latest, does kind of the same thing but accommodates a richer mix of multimedia. You'll see this demoed by Greg, who is, by the way, the developer of the app and has done just amazing work on it. But we also have means by which you can compare two or more maps ways of curating and presenting a list of points of interest in and around a destination, etc. And we do feel like we're getting a pretty good inventory of apps, but that there are plenty more to create and explore in the future. So stay tuned for that. Our numbers are small. You're seeing the vast bulk of the Story Map team here. So we can't crank things out as quickly as we'd like, but we will continue to do so over the coming months, and assuming Jack stays happy with us, years. Please go to our website, storymaps.arcgis.com. This was redesigned and relaunched in January of this year, and we think it's got some pretty useful things. At the heart of the website is a list of our storytelling apps. That in turn links you to summary pages, I think really useful, practical, step-by-step tutorials for each app, because the workflows do vary somewhat across the different apps, and also filtered galleries. So you can, and these are really useful, I think, because you can see how we, but most importantly, how other people like you have used our apps to tell stories, and I think they can help inspire you to tell new stories in new ways. And then finally, we've organized our curated gallery into these collections or themes that hopefully represent the kinds of interests that you've got. Another word about the gallery. With a recent update to this website, we have added the ability to click to an online form to nominate your story map for inclusion in the gallery. We'd love to hear from you. No guarantee that your nomination will be included, but one of our challenges is finding the story maps that are being created. So another request from you is to please, when you publicly publish and share a story map, to create an item page on ArcGIS Online to add a thumbnail to it and good tags so it's discoverable. And if you can make those tags include story map and also the name of the app, then it makes it a whole lot easier for us, and more importantly, for the rest of the user community to discover them. Some real quick numbers that represent, I think, our growth. We were very excited to see in the pre-conference survey that was sent out that 43% of respondents say that they're already using our story map apps in one way or another. We think that number, it's clear that number is on the rise, and we'd like to see it go up even more. We've got some 600 plus story maps in our curated gallery, but again, those represent the tip of the iceberg of a larger number of story maps, of which there are something like 5,800 entries when you search story map on ArcGIS Online. But as I mentioned, we'd love to see more of those. We have no idea whether that represents half or 3/4 or 2% of the number of story maps out there. We have hunches, but the more that you make your story maps accessible via ArcGIS Online, the happier we are. A word about how we develop story maps, because sometimes there's a little confusion. We pretty regularly publish new story maps. Some of them use our existing apps, but some of them amount to little R&D projects. So we'll take on a topic, we'll publish a story map as a custom effort, and sometimes before, during, after that process, it dawns on us that this might be a user experience that others can use and enjoy, and so that's when we take the second step of developing a sort of a public beta version of the app, usually not hosted, usually not yet responsive, although it varies from app to app. So sometimes people ask us for a template that's only been published as a custom story. We always make our source code available on request, but those prototype apps aren't really apps, and the source code is messier and requires more skill to configure and customize. But the ones that are more robust are much easier to use. And in fact, our third step involves just that. So making them hosted on ArcGIS Online. You still have the option to download them. We incorporate these builder functions that ensure that you don't have to know lots of obscure JavaScript and CSS code, etc., to customize them. And we make them responsive so that they work just as well on mobile phones as they do on tablets and PCs. And then finally, especially for the most popular ones, but we will, for all of them, we'll continue to update and refine them especially based on your free feedback. So please do give us your feedback. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bern, who's going to give you some ideas and tips on publishing story maps. Once we flip a couple of switches, that is.
Okay. Raise the bar on the microphone. Okay, this is a very brief overview of some tips and considerations because there's lots of things to consider, so I'm just going to hit some of the highlights here. Now, when you think about a story map, we need to start with some ingredients. And what are the ingredients? I think a good story map starts with an idea. You have an idea about a topic or a subject or something that you want to accomplish, and you put some thinking into that. You sort of evolve that idea and you begin to think about, how might I present this story? Beyond that, you start thinking about what are the elements that you want to include in your story map, and these can be the media elements, so the photos and the videos, even the sounds or the 3D web scenes that you want to add. All those things are the assets that you bring into play and bring to life in the context of a story map template. Other things that you will add are links. These could be links to websites or links to other things that you want to include as part of your story map context. You of course need locations. This is map-based storytelling, and we want to leverage the advantages of doing that, and that requires some locations on the map. It could be areas, it could be polygons, it could be anything that you can put on the map, but these do have a locational context. There's actually two ways to build a story map. One's a map-centric way or map-centric workflow, and the other is sort of a builder-centric workflow where you start in the app builder. But regardless of which approach you take, you do create a web map. And a web map is behind every great story map, and depending on your workflow, you might start with one, but regardless of your workflow, you'll end up with one somewhere. And then, of course, you need a story map template to make all of that come alive. So those are the basic ingredients. Now, where can you use your story maps? You can use them anywhere. As Alan mentioned, many of them are responsibly designed now. So they'll work in the browser, they'll work on your tablet, they'll work on your phone. You can even embed them into websites. And let's take a look at one of these story maps, and we'll take a look at the responsive design. So here I am in a browser, and this happens to be Places to Eat in San Diego. I believe Rupert was the one that crafted this one prior to the conference. And if I open it up on a different form factor, you'll see that it kind of flips into a different mode, and this might be how I see it on my tablet. It's the same content, it's just presented in a different way. So as I click on these, I get the featured image and information, and then it appears on the map. I still have a map that I can interact with, and I see things on the bottom. This is my apple. There you go. So all these different form factors are supported, and that's one of the handy features. You build the story once and can use it in many different ways. All right. So you can start with the map or start with the builder first, but when you start with the map, you have to consider all the great techniques and all the best practices for crafting good web maps. Choosing a base map, adding your layers, leveraging things like transparency and scale dependencies, and also configuring and styling the pop-up information. So rather than a list of attributes, you want to make that information more meaningful, and you can do that by styling it in different ways and by adding pie charts and bar charts and things like that. Now that I've said that, there are story maps that override the pop-ups or don't provide the capability for them to be presented. But even those that do that, it's worthwhile investing in making a great web map, because the web map is still always discoverable. So you don't want to have a cheesy web map even if it's not the focus of what you're doing with your story map application. Your final step is to save and share this. Story maps can come into play for things that you use only within the privacy of your organization, but they're especially powerful when you use them to communicate to a more public audience. Best practices dictate that when you save both your web map and also your story map application, that you add the details for it. So a good thumbnail, a good description, a concise summary, and good tags, usage notes, and more. Tags are actually how we discover your story map. So if you use the tag story map, and also include the name of the template that you use. That helps us discover those. But now we have this new way of you sharing with us your own work. It's still important for you to add those tags. A great app starts with a great map, and building a great map is an art. Many of you are cartographers, and that is your art and your trade craft. I'm not a cartographer, and I've been known to build some pretty bad web maps, but I think I've gotten better, and one of the ways I've gotten better is with Alan's help. So back in the day, some of these symbols that are represented here, we thought were really cool. We actually made these for ArcGIS Explorer Desktop, which has been around for a long, long time. But now they sort of look old and clunky, and Alan always frowns on me when I even think to use one of these. Now, of course, especially with Windows 8 and the more flat look and feel, there's better icons, better symbols for you to use, and Alan and the Story Maps team have helped architect many of those, and you'll see more and more of those coming into the web map context. The other thing to think about, again, is that good base map, that canvas for beginning painting your layers on top of it. This is a great base map. It's the OpenStreet map. However, it's a bit busy here, and there's lots of different base maps to choose from, including this light gray canvas, which lets you highlight your subject rather than obscure it with too much information. Where do you find the story map templates? There's a couple of different places to go. Some of the story map templates are on the Web Map App Template Gallery, so they're built into that gallery and you can use them directly from there. Those and many more are discoverable on the Story Maps website, storymaps.arcgis.com. And I think we'd all recommend that if your goal is to build a story map, that's your best place to start. Story map templates can also be discovered on ArcGIS Online. You'll find them as items, and they're also organized into different groups. So what types of story map templates are there? There's basically two kinds. There's hosted templates, and that means the templates are stored in the cloud. And that includes a configuration or a builder experience, and we recommend you use those hosted ones when possible. Why that recommendation? As the team makes updates to those templates, as it fixes some things, as it improves some things, you automatically benefit from that. Your web map, because it's using a hosted template, automatically leverages all those improvements. You can download the templates. If you do so, you need to host them on your own server. You can do some really simple tweaks easily, but it also offers unlimited customization potential. And we've seen some really amazing work that people have done by leveraging the source code that you can download and use. So that's another option for you. So this is just a brief list of which ones are hosted and which ones are download only. It becomes readily apparent when you browse the story map site and begin to look for those. One of your tasks is going to be to identify which story map best suits your goals. So for example, if you want to provide a sequential path for users to follow through your story, but still allow some ad hoc exploration, then the story map tour is an excellent choice. And it's very easy to add photographs and videos and websites and other things to add some interesting things to your map tour. Everyone's familiar with David Letterman and the top 10. So if your topic is sort of a list of the top things or main events, then there's another story map template. Actually, there's a couple that you can choose from. There's playlist and countdown, which kind of fit that type of storytelling very well. If you think about that your story might be organized as sort of drawers of information that you're going to want to grab and pull out and access, then the side accordion is a great example of that. As you click each of the topics on the left, the drawer sort of opens. It might expose a new map, and there'll be an exposure of some new information. So that's another good template to choose. And this is not my closet, by the way. But if you think of your story as an organized collection of themed items, then the short list, which is the most popular download-only story map, is a great way to organize things that way. So again, your task is to identify where or what might suit your story map goals. When you create your story map, there's lots of little things that we as GIS people kind of forget. We've seen some pretty basic titles that aren't very excited. For example, on the bottom, the title is Spatial Narratives and Deep Maps. Now, that's sort of interesting, but not near as interesting as the title of the one on the top. A huge international ivory trade threatens the future of Africa's wild elephants. Already I'm kind of lured into that. And the subtitle really hammers that home. The subtitle to the bottom one is NEH Institute for Advanced Topics in the Digital Humanities. Okay. That's not quite enough to kind of lure me into this, but the subtitle on the top is Illegal Poaching Has Caused Populations of African Elephants to Plummet. Earth's largest land mammal is doomed to extinction. I'm kind of going overboard with the inflection here, but you get the idea. Part of creating a great story map is to make it appealing. You want to lure your audience in. You want to draw their attention, and this is a great way to do that. You also want to kind of use your own branding. We provide the capabilities for you to add your own logos, to add your own color stylings and so forth. So you did the hard work, put your logo on there and make it brand to suit your organization's color scheme and so forth. Now, media for story maps can be handled in a variety of different ways. If you have, say, photographs that you want to store in ArcGIS online, the builder offers a really great experience where behind the scenes a feature service layer is created to place the locations of those, and as you take local photographs that might be on your local drives and add them, they're automatically sized for the feature map as well as the thumbnail. And that's really handy and really great because it automates that whole process. If you store your photos or media in other places, you need to think about different things. For example, if I happen to use Flickr and you take a photograph, and especially if it's a high-resolution photograph, and store it on Flickr, which supports massively large photos, and you add that to a story map and forget to resize that for thumbnails, well, then you're going to have a slow experience as your 5 megabyte images try to open up in little tiny thumbnails at the bottom of your map tour. So you do need to do some planning, and there is a little bit of tradecraft and best practices involved in organizing these and setting them up for your success. Photo sizes are different depending on how you're using them. There's a featured photo in a map tour and also the thumbnail. Again, you want to size them appropriately. And if you look at the stepwise documentation for each of the template, it gives you suggested sizes. Likewise, if you're using one of the story map templates that allows you to display a pop-up, then there are optimal sizes for displays and pop-ups, and some of the templates even have other sizes for some of the little thumbnails and different ways that images are presented there. If you're lucky, you can kind of find one size that kind of fits all and reduce your overhead of being able of having to consider all these different options. So that's well documented at the Story Maps website. When you do download a application template, when you do grab the source code for that, the one key thing to remember is that when you save a map, each map has an identifier. And like your social security number identifies you uniquely, this ID number identifies each map uniquely, and it's how it's referenced in the context of downloaded story maps. You just find the place to insert your map ID, copy and paste it in there, save, post, and you're done. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind. Each story map template is unique. The required elements and how you format them will be different depending on the template that you choose. Some of the templates will override some of the default behavior and configuration that you have in your web map. And the web map must be public, of course, if you want to make a public story map, but you can have private to your organization story maps as well. Best practices apply. And the other thing you need to remember is that the web map and other story map components must not be deleted or moved. So if I've used a web map and a story map, I want to make sure that doesn't get deleted. And one of the things that we added last release is a little toggle that lets you prevent a web map from being accidentally deleted, and that helps ensure that your story maps always stay alive and running. Let's take a quick look at some of the different things that we can do. Alan mentioned the Story Maps website, and that's a great place to start. And it's a powerful website with lots of information, a featured gallery. We just had a Story Maps contest at this conference, and you can go visit that link, and you'll be inspired by the great story maps that various folks have contributed and have entered in the contest. And there's some really, really excellent examples. I learn a lot just by looking at what other folks have done. There's also a gallery section, and this is where you might begin deciding which story map is the right one for you to use. For example, you can click on the left and it filters based on the template that was being used. So these are all the ones that use a map journal, these are all the ones that use a map tour, these are all the ones that use a spyglass, and you can just open up any of these and get an idea for how the story map works, and that helps you decide which one is right for you. So this is an example of a little spyglass, and we'll take a look at how that's done. So that's a really great place for you to get started. You can also look at collections and also who the author is. The other thing Alan mentioned is submit your own story map down here at the bottom. So don't forget to share them with us as you complete those. We love to see what you're doing and like to see what's going on. The other place you go for information is apps, and this kind of helps you also guide you to the right story map. So if you're interested in a sequential place-based narrative, well, that's the map tour. You can learn more about it. There's step-by-step instructions that help guide you through each story map. Also a place to download the source code if you want to host that on your own. So that's a great place to get started. It's also a place where you begin the builder first experience. But let's start by doing a map first experience. So here I have a new map, and we'll just go through very quickly creating a map tour. I have a spreadsheet, and I downloaded the spreadsheet template from the story map builder. And somebody remind me to point out where I got this. But basically I use this as a template to add the information that I need to create a story map. Now I can grab the spreadsheet and drag and drop it, and there it is on my map. I have a not so great display of information, and the thing that I would need to do that I'll just do here really, really quickly is configure that pop-up experience, because this web map will be discoverable and I want to make sure it has a good experience, and if I use it in a different template, then that pop-up will be displayed. So let's open both up side by side. There's the name of the organization. These are webcam locations, traffic cam locations, by the way. Rather than display all this information, I'm going to choose information from one field. The name of that field happens to be the description field, and I'm going to add an image which will happen to be the snapshot of the traffic cam, and that is stored in a field I've got in my spreadsheet called thumb URL. And from there I can link to a website, and that's stored in a field called website, and I'll add a caption, tap to view more information, and I'm using the word tap because this could open up, and I could open this up on my phone or in my tablet. Let's click OK, save the pop-up, and now I've got a much nicer display of information. So I've done my due diligence. I would also document the item details, but now I'm ready to save my work. And let's call this, I'm going to call this the burn map, since my brain is dead and I can't think of a better name. And we'll very quickly add a summary and some tags and save the map. So now part of my work is done. Next, I'll want to share. And I will at least share it with my organization, but I want to make this public, so I'll share it with everyone. And that enables the Make a Web Application button and lets me choose a variety of different app templates, including story map templates. The map tour is located currently on the second gallery, and if I choose publish, what I'm able to do is marry my web map to this app template. This creates a new item in my content, and again, that would be something I'd want to document, add a good thumbnail for, add a good description. But now I've opened it up in builder mode because I have locations. I now have a near real-time story map. Since these traffic cams are updated, I believe, every 2 minutes. The builder is really excellent, very easy. I can do some very dramatic things very simply, like shift the photos to one side, and I've got a great little map tour. Let's take a look at yet another example. This is a very, very simple map, 2 layers. Has an old map of New York in 1836, and underneath is the topographic base map. Let's do that process again. We'll share, we'll make a web application, and in this case, we will choose a different app template. This is the swipe. We'll publish, and again, that marries the map and the app template and creates a new item in my content. And we'll save that, and then we can enter the Builder again, and we can configure this template. So vertical bar is the default. Just click Next. Already the layer that I want to use has been found and discovered. No description, no legend needed, no pop-ups. Let's open the app, and now I've got a pretty interesting app that lets me either compare two web maps or compare one layer against others. With a simple click of the button, I can choose a different layout, click Apply, save my changes, and refresh my application. And now I've got a little different view on this. This is the Spyglass one. So really easy to configure and do. The last thing I'll do is show how we might download the source code and begin working with that. And let's go back here to our app list and go to Shortlist. This is the most popular downloadable version. And as I go through the instructions and details, here's the download. And this comes along as a zip file. The repository is on GitHub. And I just look at this in the folder, and I can go ahead and extract everything I need from there. And this is all the source code for this application. But the changes that typically people make are pretty minimal and pretty minor. There's all the source code. Since I want to test this locally before I publish it, I need to have a local version of Internet Explorer running, and I do have that. Let me just do a quick little bit of cleanup here. And let's go ahead and go to my local host here. So typically your local host would be in your inetpub www root directory, and I've downloaded the shortlist template and I've dropped it in there so I can test it. The index.html is really where I need to do all my work unless I really want to get involved with some customization. And I'm opening this up in Notepad++, and that's my favorite editor for working with story maps and other templates. Now there's a lot of stuff in here that looks intimidating, but you can ignore that. Here I found something I recognize. This is the web map ID. So this template has been downloaded and it references an existing story map, and let's see what that looks like. So that one is, the shortlist sample. So that happens to open up with the San Diego shortlist. Now, I've began creating a shortlist map here, and this is from Palm Springs. And I followed the instructions and understand I need to have different layers which appear as tabs here in the shortlist template. And just to show you that this is real, I'm going to change activities to, let's make this fun things to do. So I've just renamed that one layer, and I'll go ahead and save the map. And up on top here is my web map ID. So let's copy that. Let's go into my Notepad editor, and we'll simply paste that in there, save it, and let's refresh this, and we'll see that, voila, I now have a Palm Springs short list, and fun things to do is one of the topics at the top. So a lot of these changes are really easy to make and easy to do. Let's do one last thing, and let's embed a story map in my website. So here's my website, pretty basic one. Let's go ahead and edit that website. And let's go up a bit. And I've stored that in my website folder, and here's the index.html for that. Let's find a story map to use. Let's go to the story maps website again. Let's go to the gallery, and let's just pick one that we like. Let's choose a map tour again, and let's choose some places to eat in San Diego. So we'll just grab that URL. Let's go back to Notepad, and let's, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to my website and open my website HTML in Notepad. And I've kind of cheated a bit here, and I've already stubbed out a little section where I can add a map tour. And we do that by using an iframe. And an iframe is a pretty simple thing to work with. And you can look up all the different attributes that you might want to change. What I've done is I've set the width at 100% here, which is handy if your website is responsive and expands and contracts. So this means that the width of the story map will also expand and contract. I've set the height at 600 pixels and adjusted some other things. Let's just go ahead and save this at this point. And now let's open up that website again. Here it is. Let's refresh it. And now I see my story map application appear in the website, and I've used this now and embedded it. So lots of ways to use these. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen.
All right. So as Bernie mentioned, one of the really cool things you can do with story maps is once you create them is to create them for your own organization. You can put your own logos on it. You can match the colors to your organization's color scheme. You can add new features, but how do you get started? How do you actually do that? And that's what I'm going to talk about. So to start, we're just going to start at our Story Maps website. For this example, I'm going to show you 3 different levels. The first level is going to be how to just change your color and change the logo on our builder applications. And for that, you don't need any kind of programming knowledge at all. The next level is going to be customizing the CSS. You can add custom background images for your header banner. You can change out some fonts. You can really get in and do kind of exact styling, change arrow styles, things like that. For that, you just need minimal CSS knowledge, maybe a little bit of HTML, and you can do that with one of our downloaded applications. All of our applications, well, some of them are hosted, all of them are available for download. They're open source, they're freely available on GitHub and from our website, and we encourage you to download them and use them as you would like. And with that, I'm going to get started with the map tour application for these examples. So I'll come to Apps, our Applications page, and we can go ahead and build a map tour. So once we have our map tour started from scratch, it's going to give us a couple different options. Hopefully the internet will agree with me. When it first loads, it's going to pop up and ask you, where are your photos stored? We can get them from Facebook, Flickr, Picasa, Google+. We can import videos from YouTube, or if we have our videos and photos hosted elsewhere, we can go ahead and add them from the URL itself. Also, if I'm an organization, I can go ahead and upload my images directly to a feature service that the app is going to create for you, and then it will save it to a web map all directly from this site, and it's going to save it back to your ArcGIS Online organization account. You don't even have to go to the ArcGIS Online homepage if you don't want to. But just to save a little bit of time, I went ahead and just created from Flickr. I brought a few images in and just populated the photos and the descriptions and the titles for each photo. But this is our default color scheme. This is what you'll get when you first enter in your photos and your text description. So let's go ahead and start changing that first level of customization, updating the color schemes to match my organization. I'm just going to come up here to our settings tab. Again, right here from the start, you'll see what layout you want to choose. Just like Bernie showed, we have the left side panel, or we can move it over to the right side and have a little bit more floating style, just with the click of a button. But the next tab over allows us to adjust the color scheme. We have a few different predefined options for you that you can choose from. With the click of a button, you can really change the style that you want. But going back in there, we also have the option to adjust and put our own colors. The last option here allows you to either choose from a color picker, or we can also enter a custom hex value. We can also go to the next tab over and choose what do we want our logo to be. By default, we just have the Ezra logo in there, but you can also choose to remove that logo if you wish. Or if you have a logo hosted on your organization's website, all you have to do is right-click on it and say copy image URL, and we can paste that image URL right in this spot, right in this dialog. And the dialog beneath it allows you to provide a click-through link back to your organization's website or the project you're working on. We also have a little text box here that sits next to our social media buttons that allows us to change a link in the text. Maybe you're working on a specific project or a group of projects that you want to link back to besides just your organization's homepage, and we can change that text here. And also, again, another click-through link if we wish. And we can change what logos are visible on our application. So when I hit apply, you'll see the new color schemes are coming across. I didn't actually change that logo. I'll show you just how that works real quick. Apply. You see that remove the logo, and we also have this new text up top. So this is great. It allows you to really start matching the color scheme. So if you are going to embed that into your website or link off from your organization's website, it doesn't actually look like you're leaving your organization's page. It kind of brings it back and, oh yes, I'm still here. That your audience is really going to understand that they haven't left. It's still what you're working on. But as Bernie was saying, we can go even farther than that. He showed a couple examples of background images on our top banner here. And so I can show you how to do that. For that, we need to go back to our apps list, and we can click on the Learn More section of our map tour. Scroll down just a little bit. Again, we'll have examples that you can see if you want to see how it's been done in the past, how other users have used it. You can click on Explore the Map Tour gallery, and you'll get a gallery filtered directly to Map Tour applications, and you can do this for any of our apps. Scrolling down just a little farther, we have step-by-step instructions as well as links to build that hosted app, but we can also download the configurable app here, so that's what I want to do. So I'll go ahead and click that, and we'll get a download link, and that will give us just the source files, the index.html file, the JavaScript, the CSS. So I can open that up into my text editor. And just as Bernie showed, we can kind of ignore all those extra CSS, the JavaScript files you don't need to know. You don't need to touch that at all. The only file I have to worry about is this index.html file. This may look a little intimidating if you haven't had any HTML or CSS programming experience, but I promise you it's not that bad. All this content up top, we can kind of just ignore that, and we're going to scroll down until we find that configuration section. Again, these instructions are going to be highlighted on our website in our tutorials, but it's also commented directly in this configuration section what you need to do. In this case, I'm using the Builder application to compile the content, which is what's great about that. I can have Alan and David work on the content. They can upload photos. They can continuously add the text all through the web browser, and they can collaborate that way as I'm working on the styling of my app. So you can really allow your team members to collaborate all at the same time, and each of them align them to work on their own components. So how we get that to match for our local version as for the ones they're editing online, we can just go back and just like Bernie grabbed the map ID, all of our applications has their own application ID. So I can copy that right at the end of the URL. I can paste that into this app ID, and I'll save that. And so now when I come to my local version that's hosted on my server, when I refresh that, you'll see I have my own URL. It's hosted on my server, but now, I already did the changes. I forgot to do that. So you'll see so it's bringing across all the same content. And what I have done here, I went ahead and put a background image. I changed the fonts, and I'll show you how I did this in 1 second. I changed the fonts to match the fonts that are in my photos. And so when I come back to the index.html, so this is where I added the app ID, and I scroll down. I'll scroll down just a little bit. At the end of the head section, I added a couple script tags. There's a lot of font hosting sites like Adobe TypeScript and a few other ones that allow you to download, that downloads a cross-browser friendly font that you can use within your CSS, and you don't have to worry about where's that font coming from, what's the CSS, what's the font family. So I copy and pasted those script tags right here at the bottom of the head section. And just beneath that, you'll find, right in the beginning of the body section, you will find a style tag, and it's going to say enter custom CSS here. So there's only 2 lines of CSS I added to modify my application more. I have this header that sets a background image property, and I have a background image that has been hosted on one of our servers. And the other one change that I did, I went through all the HTML elements that has text, so the headers, the paragraph tags, the anchor tags, and I set that to use the font family that I just brought in from my script tags. So that's the next level of customization. You can just, with a simple few lines of code, you can really match your organization's look and feel with the CSS. And you really don't have to have a lot of knowledge. Even just going to a search engine and just type in CSS tutorial, you can learn how to find the different selectors, how to move around, and enter just basic CSS, and you can really make a world a world of difference to match your organization, to match the projects you're working on. The next level of customization starts getting a little bit deeper. For that, we encourage you to go back to our website. Again, we're just going to be on the map tour, and we provide a link to our full source code. If you're a developer, you can go to GitHub. And all of our templates, like I mentioned, are available free, open source on GitHub. You can download the source code, you can clone it, you can fork it. If you're familiar with JavaScript, you can really dig in and provide new features, new enhancements that matches your story. As Alan mentioned earlier, when we start a story, we're going to get together as a group and we're going to discuss what's the absolute best possible user experience for this story. And from there, we're going to develop a custom application. Sometimes we have stories that kind of match the look and feel of our templates, but there's that little piece that needs a little bit more, so we're going to go ahead. We can start with our application, or start with a template that was already created, and we can just add a few lines of code to add that new feature to make that story just sing a little bit more. So when you go to GitHub, we have a lot of great tips and tricks how to get started. We provide details about how to set the source code up on your computer so you can compile it. It comes uncompressed, so it's easy to read and easy to understand, but we want to make sure it's nice and fast and has limited number of requests for the server. So we provide tools to package it up and minify your source code, so it's only one single CSS file, one single JavaScript file. And so there's lots of tips and tricks on there. And just to show you an example of what you can do with it, this is the same map tour application. It's one of our contest winners from Audubon. You can see they completely customized the style of their app. They went through and modified the CSS, but they also went into the JavaScript and added a few additional features. So usually we recommend that your map tours are limited in the number of points they do, just so your audience stays engaged. It also gets kind of overwhelming if you have too many points. In this case, they do have a lot of points, but they added that additional feature to help their audience. They have a filter up top that allows you to filter to specific species types, and you can filter to a specific region, and it really allows you to dig in and explore and get a better understanding, even though they have a lot of points. And so with that, we want to showcase our newest template, our map journal, and Gregory is going to do that for us.
So you may remember from the plenary, one of the demo was showing that application that is using our new map journal template. That application allows you to create really simple, beautiful, and really engaging story. So you see here, you have two main elements. On the right, you have that very large, beautiful picture, and on the left, you have a piece of text. And in fact, that story is organized into what we call sections. And the way that story works is that the user will navigate through that button bar, or will scroll that panel down, and you will notice that the right panel gets updated with a new media. So this allows you to really engage the user through different media like maps, image, or videos. So for example, that map has pop-up enabled. So user can have a first understanding of the map and click the pop-up to have more information. The third section will use a different map that is really zoomed in to a farm in Malawi. And you also notice that left panel is not limited to text. You can also include beautiful large images or even videos inside. And the last thing I want to show you before showing you how to build that story is one really powerful concept of the application. That is the ability to create some action link in your panel. So you notice that farm looks like an hyperlink, but it's not an hyperlink. That word will perform an action on the map. So that specific button is zooming out the map. But you really have lots of possibility here. You could open a pop-up when user click on the link. You could load a new map. You could reconfigure the visible layer of the map. You could load a video. There is really a lot you can do there. And one last thing is that template, like a lot of our template, is responsive. So as you resize the browser, or if you open it on different device like smartphone or tablet, you will have a slightly different view of the application. So this is kind of cool, and we put a lot of effort in making sure that the application looks good on all possible screen size, and we try to make your life simple, and but you still have to test it yourself. So really, when you are building your story, don't only think about your screen size. You can resize your browser and see how it looks. You have to make sure that your images are not too low resolution, so that when you will use that kind of screen, it will still look good. So as Bernie was saying, one of the ways to create story maps is to start from the story maps website. From the application page, Map Journal is now the second entry, and so you have that Learn More page where you can learn everything about it and see a tutorial. That is essentially what I'm doing. So the first question the application is asking you is to choose the layout, the final layout of the application, because in fact from now there is 2 layouts, and we will add more in the future. And you will be able to change that layout after. So you have to choose one now, obviously, but you will be able to change it after and see if maybe your story will change while you are building it. So the other layout is that one. It's the exact same pattern, just that instead of having a side panel, the panel is floating over the map. So that's not as good as the other one if you have a lot of text. That one is really good if you have smaller text. So let's get started with the first one. You will notice on top of the application you have that button bar. That button bar was not present in the final application. So that button bar is in fact the builder feature. It will let you save the application and goes into settings. So I'm going to start by naming my story. So we also have included an help, so you can, if you don't remember, it will happen. It happened to all of us. At some point, you may not remember something. You will always be able to find that help with that button. So as I will click that button, you will notice something on the screen that will pop up, and it's to remind you the only concept that you have to understand about the application. That is, this is the main stage. This is your side panel. And when you are adding content, you will always link these 2 pieces. So the first step when you are adding content is to fill out your main stage. So in my case, I want to include an image. So I first start by using this small button to select an image. I will log in using Flickr. So you have, like in MapTour, you can choose between Flickr, Picasa, and Facebook. Or if you are hosting the picture yourself on your own web server, you can absolutely do that. So I will choose that picture. And then you get prompted about how do you want that picture to lay out in the application. This is really an important piece, and the default will usually be the best choice for you. But there is a lot of use case, and you may be interested by trying the other option and see if it's not better for the story you are trying to tell. So I will copy some content. And I'm done. I have my picture, I have my title here, I have my text. So you notice that small placeholder, and this really gives me the opportunity to talk to you about one of the great features of the application. That is that you can copy-paste stuff from the web or from Word, and the application will try to keep the formatting. So if you really want to use Word to write your story, this is probably what you should do. You will be able to choose the color in Word, choose the font size, make some complex layout, and the application will try to reuse that. So I don't promise you that everything will look good, but most of the thing will look good. So here, what I want to do is to include the Starbucks logo. So same, I'm picking it up from Flickr. It's really simple. After that, you have the option to include a caption under the logo or include a maximize button. So in my case, I'm not really interested by that. Here, sorry, I have a small issue, so that button is not easily accessible. Wow, and so that image is really big, but that's not an issue because you can resize it. Once you resize it, in that case, probably want to center it on the screen. Less space. And that's it. So we will add another section that will use a map. So first I enter my title, I want to use a map. So that dialog will let you pick any map from ArcGIS Online. So by default, you will only see your content, so, which is good. And if you want to perform some search in ArcGIS Online, you have to use that drop-down, and you can find any web map that is shared on your organization or on ArcGIS Online. So as I pick that web map, you notice under I have a bunch of options. That's completely optional. By default, your web map will look like it looks in ArcGIS Online, which I encourage you to make it look good in ArcGIS Online. I copy more text. And I have my web map. As the user navigates through it, the content change. So I could add, I have a small note to add another image. I can do that later. So I will add a third section that will be reusing the same map. So you see by default, we want to encourage you to reuse the same map. So you can absolutely use a different web map for every section of your journal. But there is some performance concern about that, because if you can add up to 99 sections in your journal. If you have 99 different web maps, the app may start to get slow and may use more bandwidth. So you probably want, if you can, to use only one web map. And the way you can do that, you always have that edit button that will let you reconfigure a section. So you have two edit buttons. You have one that lets you quickly edit the text, and you have one that lets you quickly edit your media. So for example, here I will select the content button, and I see a table of contents, so I could uncheck some layers. So I am reusing the same web map that's in the first section, but with a different content. And I can also make it zoom in the user. My second section. So I will show you how to include video instead of image. So you have that button, insert an image or video, that will let you include video inside your panel. So we have two big buttons to include video from YouTube or Vimeo, and you're also able to include video from all online hosting services through that button. You just have to copy any YouTube URL, so that really when you are on your YouTube page, you copy that URL. That button will check that everything is okay. You can check that it's really your video. Again, you will have to choose some detail about how do you want to layer the video, and your video is inside your content. User can play it.
We should wrap up soon. We should wrap up soon.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it. So after that, like Bernd showed, you can go and play with these settings. You can, depending on your story, you may want to change your panel size, or change the theme of the application, and configure the logo.
So I think you can see this is a really powerful but still intuitive builder that allows you, without needing to know any code, to go in and create really, really rich stories with a variety of, with two different layout options, details within those layout options for different color choices and width choices, and a rich mix of maps, videos, photos, and embedded websites. We're already seeing, this was released on July 3rd, and we're already seeing people like you creating some really interesting stories. Everything from floating things around the world, whether they're islands or swimming pools or you name it, to a nonprofit that's distributing mosquito nets to indigenous people in the interior of Venezuela. So it's just really exciting to see how people are already using this application, and we urge you to play with it. It's addictive. I warn you. It takes a little bit to pick up the because because there's a plethora of choices there, but it's easy and it's really fun to do. So I'm going to just wrap up really quickly. Hopefully we'll have a little time for questions, and you can accost us afterward as well. So I've heard from a couple of curmudgeons, but not too many, that Story Maps seems to be just a sort of little extension of ArcGIS, that it doesn't really matter. It's not the heart and soul of ArcGIS or GIS in general. And I feel otherwise, that traditionally those of us who are GIS specialists have been doing the heavy lifting that's still the heart of GIS, that's so important, that involves the collection and management of data, that geoprocessing and analysis, etc. But as the world changes, as our devices get more sophisticated, as we carry around these actually pretty powerful computers in our pockets and purses, our needs are changing as well. And we need to be, in this day and age, we need to be storytellers. We need to take the results of our work and make it accessible to more people. And so this spectrum of GIS is expanding from collection and modeling and analysis to include visualization and communication and storytelling. And that this is not just some little extension. It's part of our lives. And I think it provides us with some really exciting opportunities to expand our roles within our organizations. One way to think about it is, if we're doing this kind of sophisticated work with GIS and we're not communicating the results, then what's the point? And of course, these tools and others, like the Web App Builder from Esri, the presentation tool that's now been incorporated into ArcGIS Online, allow us to tell our stories in new ways. It also means, and I feel really, I have a weird passion about this, but I do think it's important that there's been so much good data that you and your colleagues and fellow workers have created within organizations, but it's been kind of enslaved within those organizations. And in that slave state, it served those organizations well, but if it was emancipated and let free, it could serve new purposes for broader audiences. And to me, part of that process involves not just making the data open, because that data may not be understandable to people. It may not be accessible to people in terms of a user experience, or they're making it understandable in the context of other people's daily lives. So part of that process of emancipation is teaching the data to become a good citizen and presenting it and interpreting it in the form of these stories. And then finally, to switch metaphors a little bit, I think all of us who want to contribute to society choose, or at some point, or grow into a role. We kind of pick our hammer, the way we can have an impact. And some people, are rock stars, and some people are opera divas, and they can bring audiences to their feet or to tears. Ours is a somewhat maybe more subtle tool of geography and mapping, but it's actually a very powerful tool, and that we need to wield our hammer to have an impact, and that hopefully our applications will help in that process, because it really is. The stories have the power to change minds and to inspire people to do things and to make a difference in the world. And so let's go and do that. Thank you very much for your time.